Okay. G'day everyone, popping in for our usual Friday chat. Going to give this 5 minutes or so. Let me just put up pre-show so I know what's going on with the show. So as you pop in, please pop into the chat and say hi. I've got a few things to discuss with you today, so we're going to have a reasonably exciting show, we hope. Really looking forward to it. I've got another free weekend off weddings this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that as well. We've got another wedding, obviously, next week, though, after that, which we're dying. We can't wait to get to that. So that's going to be amazing as well. I'm doing fusion for that wedding, so I'm really looking forward to it. So, like I said, I'm probably going to give it around 5 minutes. What time is it now? I've put the show on, about 5 minutes that we can have for pre-show, and then we can start off from there. So please say hi as you pop in. And obviously, if you the world is a ghetto. Obviously, if you are popping in or you want to miss the pre-show, just scroll. I'll put the timeline down below so you can actually work out exactly where to click if you're just interested in certain stories. So I'll put those in as well. You notice too, Susie at the back has joined me in the Sony Alpha club. So we're both wearing the Type A personality t-shirts. So Susie has got that now. Carl's in here as well, flying high or low, saying hi. Carl is here. The Lolo is saying hello. Mike's also saying hey, David. Chris is saying hello. Logan. Jerry is also saying hi. So we're getting a stack coming over now, guys. Please, if you can, give me a thumbs up. It just makes other people know that aren't getting the notification. What's up with Susie? Well, she's chilling back there. She's now become the Sony, the little Miss Sony Susie. Hello, David. Corona coffee from Los Angeles. Cheers. I'm going to have a Corona coffee in a minute. My coffee time. I'll do that as well. Oh, you got the notifications, Snappy Stuart. That's great. Yes, a lot of people are saying they're not getting them anymore, and I don't know quite why. I'm not sure what's going on with YouTube, but some people just aren't getting those notifications. So let me know what's going on. Oh, I'll show you a sneak peek too of what I'm going to be showing the next video I'm probably going to post, or one of them, while we're in pre-show. Let me just open up Lightroom for you. And hopefully it won't crash things. Where are we? And let me go rated. Because I'm going to actually I did recently take you through this. Let me just go 5. I took you through this just recently. Let me make this so we can actually see it at a decent size. I took you through this recently with Kiara that was showing how you can drag the shutter in. Basically, it's just using one flash, actually, it was used here, and it's just dragging the shutter. If you watch the video, you'll actually see how that was done. The next video that I'm actually going to do is more of a studio shoot with Kiara that's going to be coming up in the coming days as well. I'll just take that off so you can see the actual thing. They were all shot with the A7 III. And basically, I'm going to show you how to do this. This was just with one light. Which was a beauty dish above Kiara. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be up in the coming days. So if you've got notifications, well, obviously you'll know when I post that video as well. I've still got my wedding series coming on as well. So you're going to see that, the next part of that, probably over the weekend or Monday. I'll be doing the next part to that. I've already put 4 videos up, I think. So that'll be continuing over the next few days as well. So looking forward to showing you that as well. While we're in here, don't forget to join the photography videography school, guys. We're up over 3,000 subscribers now, and it's growing very fast. We're adding a lot of subscribers every day now. So it's really starting to grow fast, and I really do appreciate that. So please join us there. I'm going to put this in the comments because people get confused about how it's written. So as long as you do it like that, which is photography and videography school, the and has to be the and like like this. If we're looking at the chat, you'll see it down the bottom in a minute, that you have to have the and down here. Let me just hide this pre-show for a second. You've got to put the and down here, so that will help with that. Let me just quit Lightroom now so it doesn't take up any resources. Also, add me on Instagram, guys, because I do add you back. So it's D Oastler. Great way to support each other. So please add me on there. If I do miss you, just send me a note to say I've missed you, because I have, I think, nearly 16,000 subscribers. So sometimes the follows or whatever go off the screen. I don't see it on my iPhone anymore. So if I have missed you, just message me and we'll get it that way as well. So let me just quickly go back to all of these people popping in to say hi. Logan, Jerry, Mick, Chris is saying hi as well. Snappy Stewart, so got a notification. Oreo, boy, you're up late, Oreo. Melvin saying from New York City. Rui says hello everyone from Alabama with below freezing temps here. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here today. Gerald says, is he from Texas? Oreo said, I get notifications timely only when YouTube is already open. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what's going on with it. Gerald got the notification. Chris said, I get the notifications, but no bell. Mike said, got my notifications for coffee time with David. Hoppino said, 2:30 a.m. here in UK. Wow, you are up late. James says, hi, David, also got a notification. Carl says, my notifications are alive and well. That's great. So at least perhaps they've fixed a lot of the problems that were out there. G'day, Michael. How are you? TC Productions saying hi. Kelly's also saying hi. So we're getting a stack on board now. How are we going for time? Another couple of minutes, because I said I'd start at 3:30. Like I said, I'm really enjoying it actually, because I've got this weekend off, so I'm looking forward to it. We have a thing called Strawberry and Cherry Festival here in Bacchus Marsh over the weekend. There's a heap of, the rides going on and everyone's picking the fruit, and it's a big celebration here over the weekend. So I'm really looking forward to that. There's fireworks happening tomorrow night, I think. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So this is the first one I've actually been able to get. Usually I've got a wedding on this weekend, but I haven't this weekend, which has been fantastic because we're so tired after having the last 8 weeks of full-on weddings. So we're really appreciating having a weekend off. So we're looking forward to going to that, Kerry and myself. Apart from that, we've got another fantastic wedding. It's a beach wedding next week in Torquay, so we're really looking forward to that. That's a fusion wedding for me, so you'll obviously see a video come up as well. The fusion aspect of that one. I haven't done one of those for a little bit, so I'm really looking forward to doing that as well. So before we switch over, let me just keep going. Venom says, well, this is an early night for you also. Didn't get any kind of notification, just got lucky. I don't know why some are getting them and some aren't. Sulky's here as well. Michael didn't get the notification either. It's weird, isn't it? Just a note to my American friends, particularly in California. Hope everyone is safe. Obviously, in Australia, we have the same problem as you guys. We have bad bushfires. We call them each summer, and they're predicting bad ones again this year. So, please be safe. Nothing is worth basically losing your life over, that's for sure. So please look after yourself and your family and, get out of there if there are any issues. I think the last big fire we had down here, we were close to being evacuated ourselves. So just wanted to say, we're thinking about you and hopefully you're all fine. What else have we got? Well, that's about it. All right, so I'm just going to put start show so I know where we are, because I'm going to put in there when we actually start. So bear with me for a second. I'm just going to quit over to the Oastler images and then we're going to start the show, guys. G'day everyone from down under on this beautiful day. It's a lovely spring day here in Melbourne today. It's only around 21 degrees Celsius, but that's perfect, I think. We're looking at a warm weekend too, which is going to be marvellous, so I can't wait for that. I am going to now open up my coffee with you guys. Oh, help if I could get it off. And let me just pour the coffee. It's a pain in the backside having to do this, but you know what YouTube's like. So let me just put that over there. And I'll just have a drink of the frothing coffee. Beautiful. Love it. So got a few things to talk with you today. Hopefully we won't be much more than an hour because I've got to get out. I've got to go and vote. We've got voting here in Australia and I can't vote next weekend, and today's the only day when I can do it. So I've got to go and put a postal or an absentee vote in this afternoon. So I'll be doing that this afternoon. What brand of coffee is that? It's a Jack Rabbit brand. It's a very malty type coffee. It's a very dark type coffee. It's lovely, actually. I don't mind drinking the cold coffee. Oh, I love it. So, yeah, I've got a few things to talk with you today, and obviously I'm going to open up questions after each discussion. I'm laughing. Someone here says they're drinking coffee as well. Venom says, I'm drinking coffee here too right now. Is it real coffee though, Venom, or is it my coffee? Oh, I love it. Happy coffee, Logan said. I love it. Fenny said, just made it in time. Has says, hi, yeah, it's dark malt coffee, Mick. Oh, I love it. All right, let's get over to the first story because we can't hang around too much. We've got to get onto all this stuff. So we've got some interesting stuff coming up. So let me switch over and we're going to go to the latest news. Now, it's really interesting because I'm a bit disappointed about this first one. When I saw actually this coming up, I thought, you beauty. This is a thing we always say in Australia, you beauty. I thought, oh, there might be some real great goodies in this for us. But I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed. And I want to have a talk to you guys about what it is as well. Because Sony have just announced a version 4 firmware. Now, normally when you get version 4 or, you know, like a full incremental upgrade, like a number that goes from, say, 3 to 4 or 2 to 3, you usually get a lot of features that are actually built in. Well, we basically got nothing, really, unless you're interested in FTP things, which if you're looking at what this has, is it has new features have been added to the image transfer via FTP, and I'm not even going to go through it because I don't use it. It's really useless to me. I can understand why they're doing it. Obviously, sports photographers have said that they need these things, and the Sony A9, at the end of the day, is marketed as a sports camera. So nearly everything on there has to do with FTP. So it's all related to transferring images over these servers for an FTP server, which I'm just not even interested about. The only thing down the bottom, which I don't know if there's any other improvements or not yet, but it basically just says improves the overall stability of the camera. No one ever knows what that is, but you know, they may say it helps with performance or something, or bugs that are there, but certainly it's not that big a deal. Now, my plea to Sony. Sony, what are you doing? I mean, seriously, we should be having by now picture profiles. Didn't someone mention early on that, you know, you were looking at potentially giving picture profiles to the Sony A9? Now, I don't really need that because I do shoot in the standard profile all the time. But I just think it's a little bit short-sighted not having the picture profiles in their higher-ended camera. Now, I know some people are going to say you buy the camera that you need, but it's a bit crazy when you can get full picture profiles on the Sony a7 III, but you can't get them on the A9. Now, I've got a feeling that that's been done deliberately, and I think that's probably because the Sony A9 it really isn't, like I use it a lot, and I still do believe that it's the best video camera that Sony has. And I think they're probably deliberately doing this because they want to basically get you to get another camera, which will be a more video-centric camera, something like the A7S III that will probably come out early next year. But I think the thing is, and what you've got to understand about the A9, it's the only camera that Sony has. It's the only full-frame camera where there's no penalty loss at all between going from Super 35 to full frame. It's the only full camera you can really shoot full frame and have no penalty loss at all. And what I'm talking about here is the noise and things like that. Like on the a7 III, you have to shoot in Super 35 to get the best performance. You do with all the other Sony cameras. But the A9, you don't have to do that at all. The full frame video is gorgeous. And there's far less rolling shutter on a Sony A9 than there is on the other cameras that are out there. So I think this was probably done deliberately because I really do believe that if they'd had picture profiles put on the A9, it would have been the ultimate video camera. And I really do believe that it would be incredible, and there probably would be no need for you to go out and buy something like an A7S II or something like that, apart from, I suppose, 4K 60p. So I think it's been done deliberately, and I don't think now that we're going to see it. I just don't think now that there's any way that we're going to see this picture profiles on the Sony A9. I think if they were going to do it, they would have done it by now. And like I've said, particularly with a version 4 upgrade, you would expect there to be far more sort of big functions announced when they do like that incremental upgrade, where it's normally just little bits, but this was a full version upgrade. And all they've added is, protocols. There's things that annoy the crap out of me, and it's why on earth won't they give us that ability to change the focus point color? And I just don't understand why Sony do not do that, because it would be just such a simple thing to do, and they don't give you that ability to change that color. I'm talking about when you're doing, say, video and things like that, and if you go, I think you can change color. Someone mentioned that the other day, and I did change the colors on the camera, but I believe it depends on the mode that you're actually using, whether you can change that color or not. You can change the colors through the menu on the A9, but I think it depends too, like I said, on what function you're using. So that's an issue. And there could be little increment sort of updates in the menus and things like that they could give us. Like, for instance, I think the Sony A9 only has 2 of the favorite menus, whereas the Sony A4, I think, the Sony A7 III, I think, has 4. But there's little things like that. I just don't think we're going to get the picture profiles anymore. So I suppose in a way I'm a little bit disappointed in what they've just given us. But I suppose if you're a sports photographer where that camera is aimed at, you're probably going to be very happy about that. So let's open up the chat just to see what people are actually saying, if you're saying anything about this Sony thing. So I've put a thing in when we're starting the show. So Hazza saying, hey everyone. Penny says, hey Dave, made it in time. Logan says, happy coffee. Yes, it is a happy coffee time. I'm drinking coffee too. Mick said dark malt coffee. Yep. Definitely your type of coffee. Ray says it's beer o'clock time in New Jersey. Wow. TC said we will miss you today. We are going for a wedding now. Oh, sorry. So sorry you're missing us. You can always catch us later though. Logan says A99 too. The thing is, Logan, I don't think we're going to see an A99 II until 2020. That's the problem. I can't see them releasing another A9 next year. I think we'll get an A99 II, yes, but I think it will be for the next Olympics. So I think the earliest we're going to see that is 2020. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. I think next year we're probably going to see an A7S III in the first quarter. We still don't know whether they're going to drop an A7000 yet, but Christmas is getting closer and closer, and we just don't know even whether we're going to get an A7000 anytime soon. So yeah, it's interesting. Oreo said A9 plus picture profiles will be a competition for Sony Pro video cameras, and that's right, Oreo, and I think that's why they're holding back. I do agree with you. Like I said to you, I use both the A9 and the A7 III for video, but the A9 by far is the best that I've used. It is by far the most beautiful video that you can get off any Sony cameras, and that's by far. Like I said, if they did have the picture profiles in, you almost wouldn't need anything else unless you needed 4K 60. So Oreo, you may be right there saying that they're protecting their Sony Pro video cameras, but then it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the A7S III. It's going to be interesting. It's not good when they start to hold back a little bit. Creative Film says, sup everyone. Jerome says, hey David, where is Kiara? Can't wait for the A7000 announcement. Do you think it will come this Christmas? Well, it's getting close, isn't it, Jerome? I don't know. I'm hoping so. But like I said, even if they announce it now, would it be available before Christmas? This is the interesting thing. Well, what are we today? We're the 15th, aren't we? 16th here in Australia. What is there, 5-6 weeks till Christmas? I don't know if we're going to make it now. It looks like it's going to be next year. Kiara is working today, I think. Chris says, this firmware upgrade doesn't interest me. I'm not going to do it unless I hear something good about it. Yeah, I'm not even sure. Well, it does say on that list on the Sony Alpha things there that it improves overall stability of the camera. I wish they'd mention what that actually is, but I'll probably update it just so that I've got the latest firmware there. I haven't yet. I always like to wait a little bit and see if there's any issues first before I update the firmware. So I'm going to wait a couple of days and then just see if there's any issues with people installing it. Sometimes it's not good to do it straight away. Like I said, I haven't got a wedding this weekend, so I probably could do it. I never do it if I'm going to have a wedding the next day or something, because if it does brick the camera, you can't risk having an issue with your camera and doing up firm grades like that. So it probably would be okay for me to do it because I'm not shooting tomorrow. And that's about it. Haz says, is anyone pre-ordering the Sigma 56 1.4? No, well, I'm not, but it certainly would be interesting. That's the APS-C lens, isn't it, Haz? I'm just waiting to see what they drop with the A7000. Like I said to you, I'm pretty sure the 56 is a APS-C lens, isn't it? I'm sure that's what that is. I'm not going to buy any, I don't think, APS-C glass anymore. I'm just going to buy full frame glass and then adapt that to the APS-C cameras. I'm pretty comfortable with what I've got for the APS-C at the moment, which is that 10 to 18, the 24 1.8, which is what I've got now, which I love. The 18 to 105 millimeter I've also got, and that's it, I think, for that's it for APS-C glass. Everything else I'm shooting full frame, and the reason why I want to do that is because I want to use the glass on the full frame as well and not have to shoot in Super 35. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Yes, Huz says, yes, it's one of their contemporary lines, yeah. So I'm not going to buy any more of the APS-C glass. I'm just going to stick to full frame glass. Probably the next lens I'll probably get will be the 24 1.4. Do you think the Tamron 70 to 200 2.8 will be more expensive than the Sony 70 to 200 f4? No, I don't think it will be. It'll probably be priced at the same as the Nikon, which is reasonably priced, I think. Well, I think it's about $1,600. Someone might be able to correct me in the chat, but I think it's around $1,600. So I think it's probably going to be around the same price. I can't see them pricing it really any different to what they've already got. And I think we'll probably get that sometime next year. Can't wait. Too Smart said, shooting with the Godox X1 TS Godox V862 and the AD200 on TTL. On my A7 III, I'm always underexposed by 1.7. Once adjusted, it is very accurate. Is this a Godox or me only issue? So you're saying every time you expose, it's underexposed by 1.7. Well, are you sure you haven't got the problem with the EVF? Because I've mentioned that recently, that you've got to set your EVF, and I did mention this in an earlier comment, that the Sony, particularly if you're using sunny on the back or it's bright, to get correct exposure, you've got to be -2 on the display and the EVF. That's to get correct exposure. The problem is that you can't see this outside if you set this to -2. So I work two ways now. I have this set on sunny, and I have my EVF. I actually set that at -2. That gives you a much closer look to what you'll get on your exposure. If you don't change that to -2, you're going to find that you're going to be underexposing all the time because the EVFs are so bright. So my recommendation is to use, the way I get around it is I have that on -2, and I should do a video on this. I have it on -2. I also have zebras on 100 plus, and as long as they are just gone down, I'll know that the highlight's protected. And then sometimes I'll even check my histogram, but I prefer to use the zebras and also just use the EVS on -2, and it's fine. What else have we got here? 24 Sigma Art or the G Master? Well, I'm going to buy the G Master, Haz. Not sure when, but I will. Hey David, while setting the white balance off the white card or a white wall around my Sony A7 III, always sets the filter value M equals 3, though that color looks right. What could be the reason? I'm not sure. I don't seem to have that issue. I only do a custom white balance. I'll explain. Every time I do a shoot, I use the color checker card, and then basically I'll either get the model to hold it or I'll get Kerry to hold it. So for instance, in the reception, I really only ever need one of these, and I'll do it at the beginning because the light very rarely changes. If it changes again, I'll do another one. So all I'll do is, in each lighting condition, I'll just take a shot with the model that holds it like that. So if they go into shade, I can take one. If they go later on in sun, I can take one, and then I know it's going to be sort of back close the whole time. And the same in the reception. I haven't had that problem though where it's putting M equals 3 though. I'm not sure. Someone else may be able to help you that have had that. I haven't had that problem. Ray says, do you plan on trying the Godox system to give us your opinions? Yes, I probably will, Ray, sometime. I've just got to get the time to do it, but yeah, I will, definitely. Like I said to you as well, it definitely would give me more views if I went to Godox as well. I would never get rid of Profoto, but I might just do it in reviews so you guys can see how I can use it, and basically, you know, it relates to more what you're trying to shoot. So yes, I probably will. I'd love to try the AD200 and the AD400. Carl says, smart, check the flash with the flash meter. Yeah, you could do that too. Check it with a meter. I haven't got one with me actually in here. Michael says, picture profiles will never hit the A9. That's over. Yeah, I agree with you, Michael. I don't think it is going to. Logan says, yes, please do a video on getting proper exposure with external flash. G-Master, Casper's in immediately with his G-Master. Price aside, 55 1.8 versus Sony 85 1.8. Which one is the sharpest? Well, I think the 55 is sharper. I do think that. I think the sharpest lens Sony have got is the 50 1.4. That's the sharpest lens that I've seen. The 55 comes close, but the 50 1.4 is insane, but that's really expensive. I think the 55 is slightly sharper than the 85, but the 85 is really sharp. All of those lenses are good enough for anything you want to do, and I wouldn't be too worried about it because sharpness on any of those lenses is brilliant, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. I'm Brown's here. G'day, mate. How you going? Haas says, David, with that white card, do you use the colour picker to set the white balance in post? Well, basically, there's a way you can do it through Lightroom. You can actually do it so you can create profiles. Sometimes I do that. Usually, I'll just click on that in post. I'll click on that to get my white balance. But the great thing is then that you can also use these bits down here, and you can make it a bit warmer or cooler or whatever you wanted to do as well. So you've got a lot of control over this, and I use this all the time, and really everyone should get one of these. And if you do it, guys, please buy it through my link down below. It'll be under, I haven't listed this, but it will be underneath if you go and check my gear out, the gear that I use. But if you click on these, you get a different type of warm. It'll become warm or it'll become cool. And it's great to do. It really takes the guesswork out. The problem is if you're working in different color lights and things like that, and you haven't got anything to click on that will give you a neutral white balance, you're in trouble because you're guessing. The only thing you've got to watch, though, is sometimes you don't want to get rid of that ambient light, and that's where you have to make a judgment about how much you balance the light. Remember, if you're dealing with, say, working in a reception and it has this beautiful coloured lighting, well, you don't want to balance that to be neutral because you want to keep that lighting in there. So that's basically what I'll do. It depends on the look that I want to have, I want to actually get. But if I do want to get really lovely white balance, either way, I'll always use this so I can take out funny casts and things like that on the screen. What does anyone think about Glow EZ locks? Which would you recommend for on location? I'm not sure what that is. Dwayne says, hello from SACA. Thanks for following on our Instagram. Do you think the A9 will go on sale for Black Friday? And with the MC11 on sale, would you ever consider shooting Canon lenses? Well, yes, I would consider shooting Canon lenses. I'd love to have the 85 1.2. I may get that combo one day. And I've heard it works really well. I've heard it actually focuses better on the Sony cameras than it does on the Canon. So that's certainly something that I would consider getting, yes. I'd love to buy a second-hand one or something if I could get one, a really good one. Haas says, I'm not sure whether it will be on sale, but they're on sale here at the moment. I think you just get a $500 cash back here if you buy those cameras at the moment through Sony. I'm not sure if they're on sale though at the moment. That is quite flexible. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's a great little light thing, that one. The Glow EZ lock is not bad. I use it with my Godox ADB2 setup. Oh, I'm not sure what it is though. Derek, which one do you have? I was looking for the Silver 35. Okay, so it must be a light modifier or something, is it? I'm not sure. All right, so I'm just going to put in here, next story. Someone said to me that I should put this on because it makes it clear about where we're up to. Just before I go that, what is your workflow for backing up data in the field, or do you only back up in the office? I used to take a little recorder, which I've got in the other room. I'll get it for you so I can show you. Bear with me. I can't find it. It's a really. I'll see if I can find it for you and post it, but I'm not. It'll be in the studio somewhere. It's a little device that has a portable hard drive inside it with your card adapters in it. You just plug the card in, and then you can back it up as you go along. I used to use that all the time when I was shooting the A7 IIs. And the A7 II and the A7 R2, because they don't have the dual card slots. So I'd back it up during basically each time I had a break, I'd back it up because it does an incremental backup. The thing was that now that I've got dual card slots for everything I'm shooting with, I don't do that anymore. I still shoot with the A7 R2, I mean. But when I do shoot with the A7 R2, I'll quickly take another shot with my A9 or the A7 III, just in case if something happens, because I can't risk that not happening. So when they do, say, I only use the A7 R2 for pose shoots later on in the day, you know, the formal shots, some there where I think I might want to blow it up very large. So what I'll do is I'll take a shot and then I'll quickly grab the A7 III or the A9 and I'll take the shot again, and that gives me a backup just in case. But now that I'm using dual card slots, I'm shooting RAW to one card, JPEG to the other. That's enough of a backup that I'm not worried anymore, and that's why it's so important to have dual card slots, so I don't have to back up incrementally as I go. So that's what I do for that. But yes, I do have that, and I even should sell it because I don't use it anymore. All right, so let's go up to the next story. I wanted to talk to you about this and see if anyone's actually interested in this. I'd love to know your opinion about this. There's an SR4 going around that it's saying the Sony are going to have a 35 1.8 is in the long roadmap. And do you really think we need this? Because they're saying here, so it is on the roadmap, but we'll have to wait until 2019 to get this lens. Before that, we will get the new 135 1.8 GM. Do you guys really believe that we need another 35mm? I'm not convinced we do, but do you think it would be worthwhile? And I mean, obviously, if it's based like the Sony 85 and it's a cheap version, that people may really want to get it. But like I've already got the two 35s. I mean, I've got the 35 2.8, which I love, and I've also got obviously the the 35 1.4, which also I love. So I don't need another 35. I'd be more happy if Sony gave us another cheap wide option or something like that. Do you think we need a 35 1.8, a cheaper version? I'd love to know what you guys think about that too. So let's see if anyone has any opinions about that. Obviously, it's going to be a cheaper version like the 85 1.8, but I don't know if we need another 35. Let me just go here. Oreo says blackout here. You've gone blackout, have you, Oreo? Oh, that's no good. Ray says, okay, Derek, does the parabolic make any difference? Oh, it's a parabolic, is it? That thing you're talking about for the Godox. Studio says here too. Aldrich says, I have the Glow EZ Lock 36 and I love it. Ray says, okay, I'm getting holiday list together, so it looks like the Glow EZ lock will make that list. Oh, people are getting an error from YouTube. Still getting the error screen from YouTube. Is everyone else getting... can you just let me know in the chat, guys, whether it's working at the moment? Oh, it's back. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, because I didn't lose it, which was interesting. Carl says... Gerald says... actually, it's Ray first. I think they would be better getting a 32 or a 31.8. Now, I just don't know why we need another 35 1.8. Gerald says the 35 1.8 will be the cheaper alternative to the expensive ones. Yes, I understand that, Gerald. Carl says, don't need another 35, give us something else. And this is what I'm saying. Why don't they give us a nice wide angle or something like that, or something that is different to what they've already got. If you're talking about a 1.8, you could easily just say get the 2.8 version, and that's a beautiful lens. I just don't think we need another 35. It's just like we don't need another 50. Essential Light's saying down with the 35 1.8. Chris Swiss says, I'm Brown says, the 35 1.8 will be good for those that don't have the 35mm, especially if the price is between the 35 1.4 and the 35 2.8. It'll be interesting, though, can they price that lens less than the 35 2.8? I mean, who would buy the 35 2.8 then? I suppose unless you want that really small lens, which I do love walking around with. Like I said, that's one of Kerry's favourite lenses, and I'm amazed sometimes the shot she gets with that. It's so sharp, that lens. Swisky said, Zeiss just gave us the baddest 40mm. I want to see wider than the 24. Chris says, I'm looking for a 35, and if it's inexpensive from Sony, I might buy it. I mean, if it has the same quality that you're getting with the 85 1.8, it might be a great lens. I just don't know whether we need that. I think I'd just prefer something around the 16 or a 12 millimeter wide angle first before we got that. Gerald says, I'm fine, never got any warning. Yeah, so it must have just been Europe, perhaps. Got the Distagon 35. Does it have steady shot? I'm not sure. I don't think it does. No. Neither of the 35s have steady shot. So, yeah, they don't. I know the larger one doesn't. So, yes, they don't have steady shot. Theon says, where is Photomiac? Probably testing the Z6. He might be. I'm going to talk about the Z6 soon. Would rather get the 24 GM. Yes, I agree. Big difference in probably price, though, Logan. But, yeah, I agree with you. Derek says, correction, Ray. They're talking about that lighting modifier again. There's the Batis 18. Yes, it is expensive, though, Oreo. I suppose that this 35 1.8 is going to be quite cheap. I suppose that's the thing with it. Ray says, looks good to me. Ray says, yes, maybe on a cheaper 12 to 24 or a 14 to 25 1.8 or f2. Yes, that'd be great. Panda's in here as well. Philip said 35 2.8 is way overpriced. It is an expensive lens. I agree with you. The Samyang is way cheaper. But having said that, I do love it. I love this thing to death. I mean, like I said, I would never get rid of it. It's certainly one of my favourite little lenses to walk around with. I just adore it. Iron to Brown says, he's talking to someone else. The Essential Light says, I'm really wanting that Sony GM24 1.4. Gerald says the 35 1.8 will be near the price of the 28mm f2 and will outsell the more expensive 35mm. Hers said, greetings, Lord Oastler. Lord Oastler. Is it okay if I put full frame lenses on my A6000? Yes, it is. Yes, it definitely is. The only thing you have to watch out for is it does become a crop factor. So you basically, if you put a 35 on, you're getting close to 50. So that's the only thing you've got to consider. So you often need a little bit wider than what you think. That's why I love the 24 1.8 that I'm using now, because that gives me the 35mm focal length. And I love that. So that's the only thing you have to consider. G'day, Photomiac. How are you? Derek says, yes, if 35mm 1.8 is like the 85, then I will buy it. Ray says, what's up, Panda? It was great running into you in Photo Plus. All right, so that's that story. So I'm going to put down here next story. All right, so the next story that I want to talk to you about is about the GM24. And like I said, initially I was thinking about not buying this, but the more that I look at it, particularly the more that I want it. Now, there's a couple of things about it that I'll talk about. The reason why initially I thought this was going to be the typical GM and it was going to weigh a ton. Well, it doesn't. It's only 440 grams or some ridiculous figure. They definitely did some voodoo to get that lens so light. So that's one thing that I really would love to have it. The other thing too that I adore, like I love it on the Sony 35 as well, the 1.4, is that it has the declickable aperture, which is amazing for video. You also have your AM manual focus switch there. A lot of people may use those buttons for eye autofocus. I never use them. I keep forgetting they're there and I never use them. So that's not a big deal to me. But certainly to have the declickable aperture for me is really worthwhile because I'm shooting more and more video now. And obviously having that quick switch to slip it over to manual focus as well is really good. The main interest for me, though, is how light it is. It would be great to stick on a gimbal, and that's one thing that I really would love to try this lens due to that factor as well. But this Mark, I think it's Al Hadef or something, has put a video review about it or something like that, and I'll put the link down below so you can read it, but I was just going to read you quickly what he thinks about the lens. He just said it's certainly one of the best 24 mils if we consider all the criteria together. Now, like he said here, all the reviews have said the same thing, that it's had excellent sharpness wide open across the full field, so that's one great thing about this lens. You can use it at 1.4 and it's got excellent sharpness. Fast and accurate AF with good IAF performance. It's small and light, and like I said, I think it's only 440 grams or somewhere around that, so it is really light. Excellent bokeh and smooth background blur. Fast aperture 1.4. Perfect for low light, and that's where I'd love to use it, like in receptions and things like that, or at night time. Very small focus distance, f1.4. Very good contrast, 3D effect, so you're getting that, almost, they're saying there, the Zeiss 3D effect. No field curvature, very low distortion, very low chroma. Obviously, they're saying there that it's good for astrophotography, and I think it would be a great lens for astro, actually. Suited for video thanks to clickless aperture ring, very good color rendition, but Zeiss Loxia 25 2.4 is excellent. Very well built, weather sealed. The only thing they're saying that's actually bad about it is a very small amount of CA. Well, it's not bad, but obviously that could be corrected in Lightroom. Resistance to flare is good but not excellent. Vignetting at f1.4 and f2. Future lens light profile will correct that. I never worry about that because it's easy to correct in Lightroom anyway. Price, it's just in line with the GM range, so it's not that cheap. And basically he's saying that it's perfect for landscape, street photography, low light architecture, people, reportage, full body portraits, astrophotography in both photo and video. So it does seem to be that it's a great overall lens, and it certainly is one that I'm thinking about purchasing in the near future. So I'd love to know what you guys think about that. So I'm going to open up the chat. Where were we? Huz says the APS-C version is around $450 and a steady shot. If the full frame version is the same price, then you may want one. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they price that 1.8, that's for sure. Like I said, it's going to have to be somewhere. I can't see them charging more than what the 2.8 version is. I just couldn't see them charging that much. Gerald says, loving his 24G Master, simply exquisite. Casper says, oh no. Casper will be shattered because I'll have a G Master lens. Photomix said the Z6s are shipping this weekend, hoping my local camera store calls me to come and get mine. Yes, I was notified this morning that I could have one if I wanted one. So they are in the store at the moment, Photomix. Ray said, I want the 24 and the 90 macro. Carl says, buy it. Casper says, laugh out loud, hello. Photomix says, Mr. Brown. Eddie says, 440 grams. Now, that's light. I'm not sure if that's the weight, but I think that was what I read somewhere. But I know it is very light. What else have we got? Gerald says, my GM24 has not been off my camera since I got it. Super light, handy, and great image quality. Carl says, great coma performance on the 24 GM. Yeah, that's why it's going to be so good. It's meant to be a really great astro lens. Hud says, according to Jason's video, this lens has little to no color fringing, wide open. Plus, it's only 100 to 200 more than the Batis 25. I would pick the G Master. Yeah, well, so would I actually. Oreo loves his Batis though. I'd probably take the G Master due to the 1.4 aperture because I'd love that ability to shoot in, because I'm often doing, like I said, doing wedding videos and things like that, and I'm working under very low light conditions, so that really interests me. Plus, the declickable aperture alone, I'd buy it just for that alone. That's one thing that I really adore. Once you've had that on a video lens, it's hard to use a lens that doesn't have it. That's why I'd buy the GM first. Now, if only Sony could get the 14mm, I know, wouldn't you love if they could have something around that lens size? I really want the Voodoo 24mm. Barry says, hi, David, didn't get the warning you were on here today. Always did before from Brisbane. I don't know what's going on with the notifications, Barry. It drives me nuts. Guys, if you can, please, could you give me a thumbs up just so other people know that I am live? Because YouTube's just not letting people know, and it drives me nuts. People are always messaging me saying they didn't get the notification. Ray says, oh no, that's something else. What else have we got? Panda says the Nikon feels good in hand, and it worked well at the booth. Chasing Creation says, I think the color issues that Max Urov had, I think, was a color grading issue. Hidden benefit is that the filter thread is the same as the Sony 85 1.8 and the Tamron. Exactly. That's one great thing. What is it, a 67? Yes. It's a 67mm filter. So it means that it's going to be exactly the same as using this, which is a real advantage. So I can use the NDs that I've got for this also on that. So that's a great advantage with doing that. So I'm really happy about that. And like I said, it's great to get the 1.4 down at that size, and they really have done some voodoo with that lens, that's for sure. Ray says, cool, I want to go to the local store and try it out. Jake says, I have the 24 1.4 and sharpest kills my 35 1.4. Gerald says, I have found bad vignetting at 1.4 with my... I have not found bad vignetting yet at 1.4 with my 24 GM. No noticeable CA as far as I've seen. It's good to let you know. Ian Brown says, looks like the Sigma 20 1.4 just went on sale for $749. Means the GM is about 2 times the price. Yeah, it is a big difference, Ian Brown. The thing for me, though, particularly is the weight size of that lens. And like I said, the declickable aperture. I suppose if you're not earning money from the lens, there's no reason why you couldn't get the Sigma at that price and then get another lens for the same money. And I totally understand that. For me, though, I'm looking more about what can be useful for me as a working pro. So the GM for me would be much more beneficial for me to use. And I'm sure it probably will lock on focus a little bit better than what the Sigma will when I'm dealing with tracking and things like that. Because those lenses, even though they're good and never as good usually in tracking and things like that if you're dealing with focusing. So yes, I can understand there's a massive difference in price. Carl said, hi David, here watching with my daughter who is an elementary school photographer. Oh, that's fantastic. Carl, say hi for me. Ray said, if anyone wants the Z6 or the Z7 in the States, try Beach Camera or the Photo Center in New Jersey. Like I said, I was contacted this morning to say I could have got one today if I wanted one. Ray said, make sure you mention Ray Davis. G might come from G's. It costs a fortune. Ray says, ask Brendan at the Photo Center. Level said, price is very good. And I think it is a reasonable price lens for what you're getting on that one. But it's all relative. It depends if you can justify the cost or not, and I understand that completely. Sam said, I did get the notification that you were live streaming, and I think I usually do get notified. Yes, some are, Sam, and some aren't. I don't understand why. It drives me nuts. All right, so let's go to the next story. So the next one I want to talk to you about is this. And this, I really, photo me, it's not going to like this, but honestly, what are Nikon thinking by putting out this sort of a statement? Look, I can understand Canon saying this because really, look, I can and I mean, a lot of the Sony fanboys particularly, and I suppose I'm one in a way too, but a lot of Sony fanboys won't like me saying this, but I wouldn't be surprised in the future if Canon definitely probably take over Sony as the number one. And the reason why that is because their market is so big. And remember, at the moment, I don't like well, I shouldn't say I don't like it. There's just some things about their release at the moment for the Canon that I don't like. Particularly, I think they've just held back too many features on it, like the ridiculous crop that you're getting in that camera, no IBIS, only one single card slot. But I do think soon that you're going to get some amazing Canon release. And I do believe that because at the moment, the lenses for that system are amazing. No matter what anyone says, those lenses for that system are outstanding. And they really, I saw a couple in the shop the other day and they are beautiful. They look stunning. They really are stunning. And the body that's released at the moment does not match what the lenses are. Now, I definitely think that early, probably in the new year or somewhere like that, Canon are going to release a higher-ended model that may blow everything out of the water. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I still don't know whether they're going to hold things back, but it might offer enough to really push Sony. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. Remember, you're dealing with a massive system here of... Canon is huge in the photographic industry. Most people that are just coming into the industry that don't know anything about cameras at all will already know about Canon. Now, things have changed because Sony now, when I walk into my local stores, Sony is always prominent. And like we've just had a recent Sony store open up in High Point, which is my local store as well. So Sony is becoming far more prominent. They're no longer pushed to the back aisles and things like that here in Australia. They may be overseas, but they're not here. So Sony now has got quite a good reputation here in Australia. But it still wouldn't have anywhere near the name that Canon has. And a lot of those people that have these massive Canon lenses as well and, big collections are going to probably move over eventually to the EOS R system eventually. Because remember, I don't think Canon are going to keep producing digital SLRs forever. They're going to probably move over eventually and probably support mirrorless full in a few years' time. And, I would think probably 5 years, you'd be lucky probably to find a digital SLR anymore. I know people aren't going to like that, but that's my prediction. So I think Canon are going to be massive, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Canon go as number one. But there's no way I can see Nikon beating Sony. No way. I don't think that's actually going to ever happen now. I think they've already left it too late. And really, I think that probably Nikon are going to be number 3, and I think Sony will be number 2. And this is what I think will happen. So I think what you're going to find is that you'll have Canon as number 1, Sony will be number 2, and I hope probably everyone's going to go, I don't know, but I just think this is what's going to happen. I think Sony will be number 2 long term. I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope Sony stay as number 1. But I think Canon will be number 1, Sony will be number 2, and then Nikon will be number 3. And I think that's what's going to happen in the future. Because I know, like I said, Sony are doing incredibly well, and you guys will have to let me know too whether you think this is the same in your country. I can only talk about how we are here in Australia now, that Sony have been picked up very strongly, and they still have, I still think Nikon probably won't release another camera now until 2020. Because they've already showed their hand in the 2 cameras that they've announced, which is the Z7 and the Z7 and the Z6. So they've already showed their hand. Canon, on the other hand, we know they're going to bring out a higher-ended model soon. I mean, it's going to happen. Those lenses do not match what we've already got for the EOS R. So we're going to get another high-ended camera soon. Now, I think then you'll also find that Sony next year will bring out an A7000, and they'll also have an A7S III. So I think that's probably what's going to happen in the future. I think Nikon are just being ridiculous by saying that quite soon. I just don't think that's going to happen at all. I don't think ever now. I think basically they've missed the boat. I think they waited far too long to get into mirrorless, and they had blinkers on for so long, just like Canon did. They had blinkers on for so long, and now it's going to hurt them because they have waited too long. And plus that, Photomic's probably going to disagree, but the release wasn't good enough this time to really hurt Sony. So That's another issue as well. They haven't hurt Sony. In fact, I don't think they've hurt them at all. So I think they've probably missed the boat. Let's open that up to chat, because I'd love to know what you guys have to think about that. I'm going to get some trolls going nuts on this one, I reckon, though. I think Nikon need 2 more years to catch up, but I think that's probably too late. That's the problem. I think they really needed a better release this time, and I think that's the issue that we've got there. Panda said, I'm on mobile, and I happened to check my email to figure out that David was online. Oh, okay. Rui said, on the A7 III, is there advantage to use JPEG or RAW on the backup card? No, not really. It's only the only reason why I do it is because I nearly often now expose correctly. Sometimes I do underexpose, but a lot of the time now I'm basically trying to get it right in camera. So I know if there's a problem, the JPEGs are going to be good enough. It's only occasionally where I'll really underexpose. And if that's the case, I'm always shooting with a second camera. So I'll explain how my system works so I cover myself each time. On images where like for instance, I showed one the other day about how far you could push an image to come back from almost pitch black by protecting the highlights. Now, I'll do that. If I want to do that, I will then use my second camera to take a shot which is normalized. In other words, I expose for the whole ambient scene and get everything correct. But say for instance, if I'm using the A7 III to get this beautifully underexposed image that I know I can bring back the shadows later on, the JPEG would also be like that. So the JPEG will be useless because you can't recover the JPEG as much. But what I'll do is I'll use my A9 to take a shot at the same time that's normalized, so I've got a backup there as well. I'll only do that where the images are very underexposed. Most of my work is pretty close to being spot on with exposure in the camera. So that's one way of doing it. Now, the reason why I do that is because I don't want to edit too much. I want it to be right in camera, so then there's very little editing and I can get the stuff out reasonably quickly. So I do try and edit basically so it's correct, and it'll just be the occasional image which is really underexposed for some effect that I want to do without adding flash or something like that. So that's how that works. So basically that's what I was talking about there. So I always shoot RAW on one card and then JPEG on the other. Now, the reason why I do that is because if I'm trying to work very fast, remember you only have one SD2. You've only got one slot on these cameras that's an SDXC2 card. The other one is a 1. So one card is a lot slower than the other. So say, for instance, if you're trying to shoot 20 frames per second on the A9, it will do that to your fast card, but then if it's got to also write to the slower card, it will slow down. That's the reason why I use JPEG on the second card, due to speed. And like I said, it's only there as a backup in an emergency. And like I said, really all my work now is exposed to be correct. So it doesn't bother me using JPEG. In fact, sometimes now the JPEGs are so good out of the A9 and the A7 III that I'm using the JPEGs instead of using the RAW. Because if they don't need to be edited, the JPEGs are incredible on those cameras if you expose correctly. They come out beautiful right from the get-go. So I often use the JPEG and then I'll only go to the RAW if they need heavy editing. And that's one way that I work as well. So I hope that explains that to you. Eddie said, yep, 445 grams, not 440. Okay, yeah, there you go. So it's really light. That 24 GM is really a light lens. Photomix says the EOS R is already amazing. The thing is selling like hotcakes. And it will, because like I said, not everyone out there is a professional photographer, for instance, that's worried about having dual card slots. This is the thing. I watched an interesting video the other day about, I'll have to see if I can find the link for you. It was a guy, you may have seen it, about a guy that went to Iceland on a holiday. I'm pretty sure it was Iceland. And he lost his card. He lost all of it. And it was devastating to him because he said, I've lost it and there was nothing that basically I could do about it. There was another one that I watched recently where a guy, or read it, I can't remember, where a guy had shot, I think it was his holiday photos or something like that. It might have been a different story, but he tried to get the card fixed and it was going to cost something like $2,500 to try and get the images off. And then there was no guarantee that they would get the images off that card. Now, if you shoot a wedding in that scenario, your reputation is shot. And this is a thing that I keep saying to you people, that everyone always goes, oh, I've never had a card fail. Well, I used to think like that too, and I've admitted that I was wrong because it happened to me. And I was only saved by having dual card slots because I could use the JPEGs. So yes, a lot of people, though, don't know about that are coming into the marketplace. They don't know that you need dual card slots. They don't know that you need IBIS. They don't know that that's got a 1.8 crop. All they'll see is it's Canon's best, the only mirrorless camera that you can buy full frame, and they're going to buy it. And I agree with Fred and me. It probably is selling like hotcakes for that. But for me, personally, I think that was a terrible release for what they did. You know, the 1.8 crop was awful. The IBIS, not having IBIS on that was awful. The 1.8 crop is ridiculous on that. Dual one card slot is terrible. And that's why I'm saying for a professional like myself, I think that was an awful release. But people that are coming into the market probably don't care about that. So it probably will sell like hotcakes. Creative says, because Canon shills have been pushing it hard. Ray says, yes, but Canon lenses are so overpriced, much more than Sony. The Panda says, I agree that the R is good for photos, but I wouldn't use it for video. Huz says, over here at my local Best Buys, they still have all the Canons and Nikons on the front displays. Well, like I said, I was notified this morning that I could have gone and got the Nikon Z6. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to sell well here. It probably will. Although I must admit they might be doing that because of who I am. So that could have been the thing. I don't know if they're going to be in stock for everyone. That could be the thing as well. Eddie says, yes, I'll give you that. The RF glass is excellent. But I'm sure if Canon on the next mirrorless body will put it all out there like Sony. I'm not sure. Well, that's the thing that we have to wait and see. And what price is that going to come in at? You know, when you think the Canon EOS R is well, at least it's better priced than what the Nikons are. But at least Nikon haven't held back on their systems like what Canon have. You know, I think and I'm going to talk about the Z6 in a minute. But I think the Z6 is a much better release than what the Canon is. The problem for Nikon is, though, that, like I said, they've left it too late to compete. This is the problem. They should have done this 12 months ago and probably beat Canon out to it. And, you know, they might have had a much better luck. The EOS R system is expensive. Well, the bodies aren't that expensive, but the glass certainly is. Here in LA, they have their own display islands. Sam said, where were we? It jumped. Where were we? Oh, I hate it when it does that. It jumps down. Sam said, Canon has a history of holding back on the video side, and dynamic range of Canon is behind most companies. Yes, and that's another thing. The dynamic range is nowhere near as good as what Sony and Nikon are. But remember, people coming into the system don't really care about that. They don't know that. They just know of Canon's name. And that's why I think now that Canon have a full-frame mirrorless, I think they will eventually leapfrog Sony. I hope that doesn't happen, but I think that's probably what's going to happen. Casper says, down with Nikon. Love at number 3. Gerald says, was in a big camera store in Dallas. The Nikon Z and Canon EOS R only selling to older folks with lots of their Nikon and Canon glass. New and younger buyers want tech of Sony, Fuji, Panasonic. Interesting. And that could be another thing too, because a lot of young people do say, for instance, no Sony for their smaller cameras and also for their phones, PlayStation, things like that. So Sony may have a better name than what I'm giving them credit for. So that could be the case. I know here, like I said, when I talk to the salesman here, they say they can't get enough Sony stuff in. It's selling that fast. But I don't know what it's like in other countries. That's the thing. Creative Film says, I want to love Canon, but they hold back way too much. And that's one of the problems with Canon. But remember, we only know that because we're knowledgeable people in that regard. New people coming in don't know that. And that's one of the things that, you know, we have to say. The EOS system was great, but Olympus will be the sneaky one. Interesting. Sony just need to drop prices of their lenses and they will stay number 1. Race says, totally agree. The Panda says, I think Fujifilm and Olympus will do something together. Photomix says, Gerald, that makes sense. The EOS R is really only worth it to current Canon users. Eddie says, older folks always brought the Crown Victoria too. Sue said, my camera store said they can't keep Sony on the shelves. Fuji X-T3 also selling well. And this is what I'm saying to you, Sue, Sue, this is the exact thing that I keep getting told. And it's not lying because I can't buy the gear. If you go into any of the Sony stores and you try and buy, say, the A7 III, you can't get it. You try and go and get the 70-200 G Master, you can't get it. If I go in and try and buy the 24 GM, I won't be able to get that at the moment. It took me that long to just get the Tamron. The stuff is selling like hotcakes, and they can't keep the stuff on the shelves. And just wait till the A7000 comes out. That's so true. My camera store, oh yeah, that's what Sue said. Ray says all companies are going to be chasing for a while. Yes, I agree. Waiting to see Panasonic full frame. Yes, well, we don't know what that's going to come out as. We'll have to wait and see. Remember, Sony haven't released their A7S III yet, though, either, or the A7000, so we don't know what that's going to do. James said Sony really needs to improve touchscreen ability in the next generation. Yes, they do. I agree with you, and I spoke about that the other day. Michael says, as it stands, and that's the only thing I can go by, there's not a better full-frame camera system on the market than Sony. I agree with you totally, Michael. Now, what's going to happen in 5 years from now, we will see. Yes, I totally agree. At the moment, there's no better system and full system than what Sony have at the moment. We have the best lenses out there. When I say I'm talking about native lenses, we have by far the best native lenses that are out there. That we have basically, I think, the best camera. If you're talking about the A7 III, I still believe the A7 III is the best overall camera out there, that you can use. And so I think really, I can't wait to see what they bring out with the next release. It's going to be really interesting. Carl said the EOS R is amazingly bad. I think it takes great still shots, though. It really is a good film camera from what I've seen. Logan says, I just bought the Voigtlander 65mm f2 and the manual focusing assistance in the A7 III is very helpful compared to the other systems. Sam said, yes, Sony prices need to come down to increase their customer base. Iron to Brown says, I agree, millennials want features, techie things more than sticking to brand loyalty. And that's really interesting, Iron to Brown. I'm glad you said that because that may be true. Langston says, I don't know, David Oastler, Nikon fans seem pretty die-hard. I'm not saying they're going to abandon it. I'm just saying new people coming in are going to, I think, either go Canon and Nikon. That's what I think is going to happen. Ray says, I can't see Olympus sneaking in on the full-frame camera because they have the best shot at taking Sony down. Fuji, Nikon, and Canon blew it. I can see Olympus. I'm not sure if that's going to happen now. Chris said, get the impression Nikon and Canon basically release cameras just good enough to keep existing users from jumping the ship. And you're probably right, Chris. That's probably what they did. Will be interesting to see if they actually make an effort to leapfrog when the next generation or maintain their existing customers. They've got to stop holding back, and this is the thing. Photomix said, people think they want features and tech just to take pictures of their friends on the train tracks. Sam said, Sony B Alpha promotion events are amazing. I went to the reception to a recent one in LA, and it was great. More than the B Alpha events will help improve Sony photographer base. And that's the thing. I have to say, now whether you're going to agree with this or not, the Sony marketing is the best marketing of anyone out there. They beat everyone if you're talking about marketing. I really believe that Sony are the Apple of the industry. They market the same way. They treat people the same way. They grab sponsors, or what I should say, influencers the same way. So Sony are very, very switched on in marketing and media and running these events and things like that. They really are good. You'll recently notice that they have just hired some female influencers to do this sort of stuff as well. So they're pushing themselves into that market because it was a little bit lacking. They're always promoting that sort of stuff, like these the B Alpha events, all that stuff that's going all the time. You'll notice the second something's released, they'll have massive amounts of YouTube celebrities or Instagram people out there so that they can spread the word. Nobody does that better than what Sony does. I'm not saying it's the right thing sometimes, but nobody does that better than what Sony does, including Canon and Nikon. No one even touches them. The way they run their events is a mile above what anyone else promotes. If you look at the recent Canon and Nikon release, compared to how Sony did that, it was like chalk and cheese. It really was. What else? Ray said, "Photometer, you're funny. Stay off the tracks. They're deadly." What else have we got? Trev said, "I think the first company to put cinema-level video in small bodies will seriously impact Canon. Canon won't because they have a pro video line to protect. Sony has an opening here." Well, Sony don't either, Trevor, because they also have a cinema-level cameras as well. That's probably a reason why they don't give us everything either. Remember, they have the FS cameras and things like that. So Sony do also have a high-end video cameras as well that they protect. That's for sure. So I think Nikon probably is the only one that doesn't have that side of things. So Canon and Sony have more to lose in that regard. But all that will happen is it'll be taken up. The sales that they'd lose from that end, they'll sell far more by selling more of the lower ended stuff, and in the end it will all balance out. So I don't really understand that thinking, really. They're still going to sell bucket loads of these cameras. If they brought out a A7S III with an articulating screen with internal NDs and it had 4K 60 or 4K 120p, everything that you need, that thing would sell like hotcakes. They'd probably sell way more of those than they ever would of FF7s or whatever. So I don't really understand that thinking. I think it's a little bit short-sighted. Eddie said, oh, that's just a Jared Williams. Brett said, and prices on older lenses haven't dropped either. That's the thing, they don't. You look at used gear prices for the Sony stuff is still incredibly high because no one gets rid of it. If Sony will release an A7S III and the A7000 with a few APS-C lenses before CES in January, then that will push them into the commoners' conversations and the brand will become a household name. Yeah, I mean, we still don't know when they're going to drop those cameras, and it is getting a little bit frustrating because I need another video camera, and that's the thing, and I just don't want to get another A7S III at this stage, because if I buy an A7S III, I know they're going to drop an A7S. If I go out and buy an A7 III, I know they're going to drop an A7S III the next day or an A7000. So I just don't want to buy anything until that's, until they release or announce something. Russell said, have you ever used the 24 1.4 yet? I just got it, and so far it's been amazing. I used it in the store the other day, and yes, I loved it. It looked beautiful. Dave Sincere is here. What's everyone going on? Oreo said test. Logan, I can't buy from B&H. I'd be charged customs, plus I would lose warranty advantages. Yeah, that's one problem when you buy from overseas, Oreo. A7 III plus Tamron 28 to 75. Best setup ever. I totally agree with you. I adore that combination. That lens I use now on weddings, and it stays on my A7 III and does not come off. It's unbelievable. I adore it. I totally agree with you. It's fantastic. Ray said, are we missing the point to Sony madness? The technology is there to allow photographers to do less editing and better shots out of the camera. Well, Ray, they do. And look, I always say that you're still an artist at the end of the day, but there's features in there that do help you. And that's the thing. Like I said, shooting 20 frames per second definitely helps you if you want to capture that perfect moment if you're dealing with dance photos. The dynamic range gives you ability to capture things that you wouldn't have been able to capture before. The very quick focusing gives you the ability to capture things that you wouldn't be able to capture before. So technology still helps, but it doesn't make you an artist. That's the thing that we have to understand here, I suppose, that at the end of the day, you have to be an artist to capture an amazing image. No matter how good the camera is, it's not going to make you an artist if you're not one. And that's the thing you have to understand. But the tool does help you, and that's basically where I'm going to leave that. All right, so next story. Let me go to this. So next story is the Nikon. This is great out there for photomaniac. Let me just drag this down a little bit. The Nikon Z6 4K footage outshines the Z7. Well, I think we were going to know that all along. It is very similar to the Sony A7 III, and that's fantastic. So I know Ike's going to get that for me, so I'm really happy for him that they're saying there that it seems to be that it's a really good video coming out of this camera. You can read the story yourself. I'll put this down below. Basically, they're saying that it's a very capable video camera because it uses the full sensor, basically, not like the Z6, which has to do this oversampling and stuff like that. So they're saying it uses the 4K footage with no crop. It also can shoot 1080, 120p footage for slow-mo clips. And there's videos that you can actually watch of this when you go onto this site that I'll put the link down below. Basically, they're saying the 1080p video is slightly better, I think I read, than what the A7 III is. 1080p down here, they're saying the Z6 full frame 1080p 1080 24p looks better than both the Z7's full frame and also the A7's 1080p 24. As a whole, the Z6 HD footage has much more sharpening applied than the A7 III's, but it doesn't necessarily show much more tangible detail. This is also the case when comparing the Z6. So I think what they're saying is that the A7 III has slightly more detail than what the Z6 has, but they're saying that the footage is slightly better coming out, so it's subjective. But either way, they're saying that this matches what the A7 III has. So that's great news for anyone buying this as a video camera particularly. They're saying that the 4K footage approaches it differently than the Z7 because it doesn't do that oversampling. Approaches their oversample 4K output with Sony doing a better job capturing finer detail. So in 4K, the Sony is better than the Z6, according to this. But they're saying it's definitely better than the Z7. There's not much else in that. But like I said, I just wanted to mention that it looks like, and we knew this all along because they'd marketed this more as the video type, fusion type camera, that this will be a better system if you're dealing with video. So it looks like it fairly well matches the A7 III, and you would hope that it would. I mean, it's a much newer system. You would hope that they would be matching what the A7 III has. We don't know even whether they're similar sensors or whatever is in these cameras either. I found when I went over from Nikon to Sony that no one ever noticed any difference at all because it was basically the similar color and everything else. So I did see, and someone's just mentioned it there, yes, and I wanted to mention that Max Urav did a test, and the problem was that the Nikon cameras tended to be over-sharpened. Now, they haven't really, they did sort of mention that there a little bit, but Max's video, when he showed it, didn't look good at all. Now, whether you can then, say, use minus settings in there and then take that sharpening out, because you don't want to have the footage looking too sharp in the beginning. You want to be adding sharpening in post. So, you know, it's not good if it's over-sharpened at the beginning, because if it's over-sharpened at the beginning, there's nothing you can do about that. You don't want to be photographing, you know, like a beautiful bride or whatever, and then have every wrinkle or whatever showing on the face, or, you know, every skin pore showing. That's not what you want. So you'd have to be somehow reducing that sharpness. So whether Max didn't reduce that sharpening in that test, I'm not sure. But overall, it looks like it's a fairly good result. It definitely looks like it's better than the Z7 due to the crop that you're not now getting. Obviously, it's still going to be like, it actually says there's very little difference, and this is interesting because they're actually saying there's very little difference between using Super 35 mode and full frame. They're saying there's only a very little penalty in noise. And like I said, the Sony A7 III, there is definitely a penalty if you shoot in full frame. So this is slightly better than that there isn't that penalty if you shoot in full frame. Still nowhere near like the A9 though, which obviously has no penalty loss at all, but it's definitely better in that regard that you can shoot Super 35 or full frame without having much of a noise penalty at all. So overall, it looks like it's fairly good as long as it doesn't have that sharpening, which is too sharp. Every time I see things like this, it really does annoy me that the fact that they didn't just put the dual cards in that camera, because if it did, it would be a seriously good camera. And it must be so disappointing for Nikon shooters out there that want to have that redundancy that just haven't got it. And it really is a pity that they've left that off, because it looks like it's a great camera, and I'm sure Photomic will be testing that fully because I know he's getting one. So let's open that up to the chat. Love to see what you guys have to say. Also, the other thing too is it has a much better viewfinder, but remember you're paying a lot more for that camera than the A7 III. I think you are anyway. Does anyone know the price of that camera? Put that down. What is it, Photomic? You might be able to let us know. I'm pretty sure it was much more expensive, but I could be wrong. But the EVF is much better. So if you're dealing with the EVF is sort of I think it's even above what you're getting in the A7R2, A7R3. I mean, so the EVF apparently is beautiful on that camera. Bye Panda. Chris says, as someone with very shaky hands, features like continuous IAF and silent burst really help get pictures I couldn't get otherwise. Yep, I can completely understand that. Brett said, even the Sony Zeiss 35 1.4 is still 2,400 and even not in stock at the moment. 4 to 9 weeks wait. Yeah, I know, that's the thing. You're going to be just waiting forever for lenses. You can never get them. Oreo said, bye Panda. Terry says the Z6 is looking killer. Yep, I agree. It looks good. Sam said, thumbs up for everyone, for David, everyone. Thank you so much for saying that, Sam. You're riding hard for that Nikon. I saw your videos. Dave said to Photomic. Zoe at Moments said, I agree, Sony and Canon have a lineup to protect, but I certainly can't wait for when small form factor mirrorless digital SLR style cameras come with ProRes record. I still have features of the A7R2 and the A7 III. Yep, I agree. Eddie Grant said, I work smarter, not harder. Gerald Williams said, Max Yours chose the Z cameras have perhaps too much sharpening. Yeah, and that's got to be something that needs to be addressed. I don't remember whether he said if you could just put minus in your settings to take that sharpening out, that would overcome that. We're going to find out more with more tests coming through soon. I'm not sure if Max just uses the standard tests and everything was set at 0. If it would just be a simple thing as having your sharpening put down, it wouldn't be an issue. So that could be one way of getting around that. Robert said, hi, I'm late from Alabama. Well, at least you got in here, Robert. Oreo said, Gerald, I've seen Max's reviews. The Z cameras give terrible video. I'd rather have soft than over sharpened. Yes, you can't have over sharp video. It looks terrible. You've got to be very, very careful. Well, it looks like camcorder, it looks like that's the thing. It looks awful if you're dealing with that sort of stuff. You really have to have it nice and soft and cinematic. And if it's over sharpened, that destroys that. So hopefully, like I said, you can just put something in minus in the settings to take that sharpening out. And I agree, Terry, that's probably what you can do. Haas says, David, do you think the high-res Canon mirrorless will have around 45 megapixels? Well, we don't know. You would think it will have something like that, but we've got to wait and see. If it also has that, is there going to be a penalty in the video side has? So we're not sure. Photomic said the Z sharpening is a simple fix, just turn down sharpening easy. And that's why I just said Photomic. Yeah, I don't know why Max didn't try that and then just put it down and see if that fixed that test. Langston said, I'm not sure what that means. Gerald said, will pros pay more for the Z camera and get only one card slot? No, they won't. Unless you're like Photomic, that's probably going to buy this camera so he can, do his reviews on YouTube, obviously, and use it for his YouTube videos. He can use it for anything else he's doing. But I'm sure Photomic, if he's doing a wedding, is not going to risk using that camera to do a wedding. He's got a D800, I'm sure, or a D810. He's going to be using that camera or something like that where he's got backup. Photomic knows exactly, just like I do, you cannot risk a one-off event with something that you might lose files on. And that's the thing. I'm sure if he's using that camera in a wedding, he'll be doing what I'm doing and shooting another camera at the same time to protect himself. I like I said, I wouldn't buy that for that reason alone. Apart from that, though, I mean, they seem to have done a really good job. And this is why I'm saying I think the Nikon was a better release than the Canon. You've got the IBIS. You haven't got that horrible crop in the camera. So, Photomix says, I'm risking it all. Yeah. I mean, so I think overall they're a much better release than what the Canon release is. Because of that, but then the Canon has the articulated screen, so you're sort of gaining one and then losing the other. So it's something that you have to consider which way you want to go. But I mean, I think the Canon is crippled by that horrible crop. It's crippled by that, also having the one card slot and no IBIS, which I think is far worse than what the Nikon have. But remember, Canon have such a big market that they can probably do that and get away with it. Ray says, no, you are not. That's what David was saying. The artist is necessary, and I completely agree. Good night, everyone. Mick. Mike's heading off. Photomix says, I'm risking it all, David. Hart says, Photomix, you ever tried the Mickey manual lenses? Casper said, buy a Sony, Ike join the winning team. Photomix said, Sony, Nikon is always a better release than a Canon. It's been that way as far as photography is concerned. Yes, and I agree with you. They are always got better dynamic range, and they don't seem to hold back as much as what Canon does, that's for sure. Gerald says, the Nikon Z may be better than the Canon ESR, but Canon marketing will outsell the Nikon. And it's not only the marketing, it's just the size of that company and how much dominance it has, Gerald. That's the thing. Photomix says, Canon sucks, I suppose. Just love to slang skin tones and glass, but whatever. Yeah, they do, and that's the thing. They'll always talk about color theory, won't they? Or that's the first thing that they'll say. Can you record to an external device as a backup? Yeah, but the problem is it's too hard to do these sort of things, and you can't rely on it. If you're dealing with Wi-Fi particularly, Wi-Fi is unreliable. If you're dealing with something like a cable, it can be pulled out. It may damage the port. It just won't work. You need dual card slots. That's all there is to it. Nowadays, there's no excuse for releasing a camera at that price range with dual card slots. I would definitely buy the D850 over any of those mirrorless Canons because I think the D850 is still the best digital SLR that's ever been made. So if it was my choice, if I was out there and I needed another camera, I'd buy the D850 in a heartbeat over any of these other Nikon mirrorless cameras that have come out due to the fact of having that dual card slot. And it's still got better focus than any of those. It's still a better camera than any of those, and you have the dual card slot. What else have we got before we go to the last story? What have you heard about Bluetooth tether? I wouldn't be using Bluetooth. It's unreliable like anything else. Ray, it also can't keep up. I mean, there's no way you can transfer files, raw files, fast enough through that system. And that's the thing that you've got to understand. Wireless will not work if you're doing events and things like that. If you're doing really slow, methodical stuff, yes, but not if you're doing events. There's no way you can do that. I like Nikon and thought I was great for some features. I also thought Canon having the ring on the lens was cool. Yes, that's great. That is a great feature. Excuse me, I'm having a coffee thing. Let me just pour some more coffee. I love it. Cheers, coffee. Canon having the ring was cool. So has to add their flip around as... Oh, you're talking about Sony have to have their flip around lens. Yes, I so hope they do. I don't know if they're going to do it though. And a better touchscreen. Bryce said, Match mentioned that he noticing the sharpening during editing, it was set to default. Well, there you go. So that's probably a really easy fix. All you'd have to do is just go -2 or something on your sharpening, and then it's no longer an issue. So I think worrying about sharpening like these have mentioned really shouldn't even be mentioned, because all you have to do, they could have said, Due to the fact that it was sharper at default, we used -2 and then compared it like that. If it's something that you can quickly change, you shouldn't be comparing sharpening from, say, a camera that's softer to one that's over sharpened, when you can just quickly change a little setting and make it look good. So perhaps that's something that Photomiak can do when he gets the camera. I picked up the Nikon Z7 last week. I'll be returning it tomorrow and pick up the Z6, only because I have over 12 Nikon lenses. Yep, and completely understand that. Ray says, yes, the biggest thing I liked with the Canon was the responsiveness of the EOS R. Terry Breed said, Nikon is getting serious with these new cameras. Their stated intent is to take #1 spot in sales, so keep an eye on the new cameras over the next couple of years. Michael said, David, at this time, just give me another A9. Oh, no. I've thought about that myself, actually. Just give me another A9 so I can have good matching video, because to me it has some of the best quality video out in full frame. It's not some of the best, it is the best quality, Michael. I can definitely say the A9 is the best video camera full frame that's out there by far. The least amount of rolling shutter, and it's unbelievably beautiful, having that 6K down sample without any penalty loss at all. It's stunning. The detail is stunning on that camera. Being Nikon 1 is a pipe dream. Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen either. Langston said, Bluetooth data rates are a joke. That's right. I agree they are. There's no way it can happen. I love, Michael says, Casper GM in the house. I love it. We will see. Well, you may be right, Terry, but I doubt it. Haas says, David's next step, Oastler Cafe, that sells coffee. Casper said, laugh out loud. The Z7 Wi-Fi directly to my laptop is amazing. People are overlooking that fact. Yeah, but let's get serious here. You cannot lug a laptop around at a wedding. I mean, you're going to look like a right lunatic if you're carrying around a laptop and you say to the bride, hang on a minute, I've got to check my data's syncing okay or whatever. You get Wi-Fi dropouts, you get other things going on you'd have to constantly check. Yes, if you're dealing within a studio situation or whatever, that might be fine. But there's no way you can use Wi-Fi in something like a wedding or an event, or even anything that's fast moving. It's just no good. Jim said, all good from Minnesota, where global warming has not yet arrived. That's funny, Jim. Steve said, what system do Foxtel live cameras use to transmit to base? Not sure. Langston Ball says, but I have to lug around a laptop. You are mainly a studio shooter. Yeah, there's no way you can lug around a laptop and doing events and stuff like that. It's just not going to happen. Bye, guys. It is 6 a.m. in South Africa. I have to go to work. And that's it. All right, so let's go to the last story. Because this was interesting. I just wanted to share this with you, that Panasonic have just announced its first 8K organic sensor. And they're saying this might be coming to future S cameras too. So this is really interesting. And they're saying that it's going to come out next year, I think, in late 2000. Now, this is with Fuji, so that's interesting in itself. This is a collaboration, I think, with Fuji. So it's a Panasonic and Fuji organic sensor in late 2019. And they're saying, I think there's a good chance this sensor might be implemented on future S cameras as early as 2020. Now, I'm not going to read anything else about this because it's just interesting to see that 8K is not as far away as what we believe it to be. And I'm sure Sony are looking at this as well. And it's going to be something that's going to be announced, probably within the next 12 months or so, even from Sony's side of things. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure. Someone has said, what the F is an organic sensor? I've got no idea. You'll have to read this document. But I just wanted to talk more about this 8K business, because this brings in some really interesting questions. Because remember that I've said to you all along that I think fusion is the future of being a photographer. And I've said this all along because as soon as we get to an 8K sensor, grabbing stills from that video, I think gives you something. I'd have to look it up again. I wonder if I can. I won't. I'll just guess because I'm not sure, but I believe it's over or close to 20 megapixels. It might be a bit more. So you're basically getting what an A7 III, and please, if someone knows, mention it in the chat, but you're getting something like what a A7 III will give us as a continuous shooting reel. So in other words, you can grab any frame from that and use that extracted and have a 24 megapixel file. I think it's around that. I could be wrong. Someone, I'm sure, will look it up for me while I'm having a chat. So this changes everything, in fact, once this starts. Now, yes, there's other implications, like you can't use flash. So I do understand that you can't use flash in those scenarios to overpower the sun, things like that, or if you wanted to add mood and things like that, which a flash can give you, you can't do that. But if you're using natural light or you're using continuous light, which a lot of people now are moving into using continuous light, this changes everything. So basically, you're shooting video and stills at the same time, and this is what can happen. You can grab stills now, and the GH5 does it really easily. I think you can even do it from the Sonys. I've never done it, though, because it's not big enough in file size for what I use, but the GH5 has a very good implementation of this. But if you could, say, get 8K footage and then grab, someone just said, is the organic sense of vegan? If you can grab stills from that and then just take the moments that you want, it changes everything, doesn't it? And this is what the future is going to hold, guys. Eventually, it is going to get to the point, you might not agree with me, but I'm telling you this is what's going to happen. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where you've got 18, 16K sensors in these cameras, and you're not going to take stills anymore. You're just going to take continually shooting the day, and then you're going to grab stills from that and then manipulate those stills. That's what's going to happen in the future. This is why I'm saying to you it's so important to think and not have blinkers on and think about what might happen in the future. That learning video, particularly if you're a still photographer, is a big advantage to you because you're going to have this foundation already. Oh, someone said 8K is about 32 megapixels. There you go. So you're getting more than an A7 III from an 8K footage. It's incredible. This is what's going to happen. This is the future of what's going to happen. And we don't know. So there you go. 4K is 16 megapixel. We don't know how soon this is going to come out, but it's definitely going to happen within the next 5 years. So what I'm saying to you people, you know how I care for all of you guys. My number one thing that I'm saying to you all is, yes, you must learn photography first. The second you've got photography down pat, learn video, because this is going to keep you in a job in probably 5 years' time. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. So, start to think about that aspect of it now. Be upfront and start to learn now. This is why I called the Facebook group Photography and Videography School, because I do want to start pushing more and more video into that area to show people what's possible and things like that with Fusion and stuff like that. So, it really is important. So try, guys, if you can. Yes, if you're not a really good photographer at this stage, you can't learn both at the same time because it's not practical, but it certainly is something that you should think about for the future to keep yourself in a job. All right, so let's open that up to the discussion because I'd be curious to know what people are saying. Where were we? Haas says, doesn't RAW file converts to JPEG when you transfer via Bluetooth? Not sure because I don't do it. Jim said a laptop at a wedding is a good tabletop for a wedding cake. Jim said, good to see you, Michael. What is F organic? Someone said it's a vegan sensor. I love that. Haas says, brought to you by Whole Foods. I'm not sure what that means. 8K, my God, my computer or internet can't handle 1080p. Yeah, but eventually those sort of things will come down in price and they'll be able to handle it. It's only a matter of time. Remember, it never goes back. So eventually 8K is going to become the norm. And that's what's going to happen in the future. It is going to be the norm. At the moment, 4K is still not being used that much. That is changing, though. I love shooting 4K so I can crop in, and I love that. It gives me multiple angles. That's why I want 4K 60p so much. Everyone keeps saying to me, oh, you don't need 4K 60p. What do you, no one can even use 1080p. But I want 4K 60p so that I can use cropping in camera. That's what I want it for. And if you had 8K, it would be incredible. It's made of kale. Oh, I love it. 8K is around 32 megapixels. You're made from horse something, Michael has said. The organic sensor is one that I want to see. Panasonic have been talking about 8K for a while. But David, when pulling frames from video as a still, one thing that you will need to be recording very high frame rate per second. Yes, you will. And that's the thing that often you don't understand. Well, people don't understand. If you're shooting 24 frames per second and then you're only shooting at, you double that frame rate at 1/50th, you'll get motion blur. And that's the thing that you've got to understand. So you would have to be shooting with higher frame rates. I tend now, though, to very rarely shoot in 24. I'm often shooting now in 60. And that's not bad. And when 120 comes out, I may even shoot 120. I mean, you do lose that. A lot of people say you lose that cinematic look of 24p, but I don't mind that. I like to shoot with faster frame rates because I think it looks smoother and that's what I prefer. I know videographers are going to go in here and say, oh, no. But... and I can see in the future anyway, the cameras and everything is going to get that powerful enough that you'll be able to shoot dual things like 24p and another resolution all going at the same time. You just don't know what's going to be possible in the future. But you do have to have a higher shutter speed, yes. But if you're dealing with 1/100th, which often I'm shooting at 1/25th, you could easily be shooting video at that, easily. I often rack the shutter speed up now all the time when I'm not using NDs. And I don't mind it. And I've never had a client complain that it looks, like jittery or whatever. Video guys are going to notice that, but clients aren't going to notice that. So if you're dealing with 1/25th of a second, it's going to be good enough for most of what you do. And like I said, often I'm upping the video frame rate to 1/2000th of a second. And I still get decent video. So I'm not really worried about that. Oops. Chris said, it'll be interesting, though, if you shoot at half the frame rate, you'd have to deal with motion blur. Like I said, though, I just mentioned about that. You just up the shutter speed. Robin says, yep, video is the new content king. It definitely is. People want video for everything. You've only got to look at Instagram and stuff like that. Flying High said, are you still here? I'm just back from lunch. Yes, we always have long things. So it said, 100 frames 4K is the perfect one at the moment, 8K 60 frames. I would like to shoot 4K 60. That would be the ultimate for me at the moment because I don't grab stills out and then I can crop in. But that's what I'd love to shoot. David said, with the Fuji Panasonic sensor, we are talking about the potential 29.2 stops of dynamic range, which could produce some pretty amazing images out of the box. Interesting, David. I didn't know that. And this is the thing, this is why I'm saying, once they get the dynamic range in video, everything changes. And this is why I'm saying it is going to definitely change in the future. You're definitely going to grab stills from video, guys. 8K in these cameras will come by Tokyo Olympics. That is Panasonic's plan. Expect Sony to be right there also. I'm sure they will be. Jim says, when 8K is common, 16K will be out, but people will need eyeball rod cone enhancement surgery to view and fully appreciate that. Yeah, that's funny, they will. Oreo said, being able to crop into slow motion footage is the definitive tool for wedding filmmakers. Yeah, exactly. That's why I want 4K 60 so much. And with you, David, I'm wanting 4K 60 or 8K 30. It will make my work so flexible. And the cropping as I try to deliver 4K to my clients. Don't forget too, you always get better video shooting 4K and downsampling to 1080p. If you're shooting on Sony cameras, if you shoot 4K and then you downsample to 1080p, you'll get a much nicer video. So it's something that you have to consider. Haas says 24p never works for me. It looks choppy. Yeah, I don't really like it either. I agree with you. Videographers and that love it though, but I don't. Huz says it requires such small moves to be smooth. It can be a pain. Stacey said, I agree. Fusion is happening now. I just purchased the Moser Aircross for one of my A7 III cameras. I love that gimbal, Stacey. It sets my company apart from other companies. I'm still learning, and that's right. Like I tell you guys that's changed the way I shoot, and it's certainly changed my business. So I've given you a big heads up on really what you should do to make yourself different to everyone else out there. be offering Fusion to your clients, and you're going to offer them a totally different thing than just using stills. Yeah. All right, so let's have a quick Q&A before we finish. How long have we been going anyway? 1 hour 43. I was going to make it a quick one today. What's up with the 6 down? I always get thumbs down. It makes me laugh. I really, every video now, I get thumbs down from people. It's crazy. I think they think it hurts me, but they don't realize that they're giving you your analytics a lift anyway. So I never worry about it. I'm getting thumbs down before I even post a video now, which I'll post it and it's on for 5 seconds and there's a thumb down, and I know there's no way they could have watched it. David, haters are out there, unfortunately. They're probably sitting in their mother's basement waiting for their mother to serve them dinner, and they've probably never shot a photo in their life. And this is the thing with these people like that. You know, they're basically, like I said, waiting on their mother to do their washing. I love it. Haters are haters. The more popular you get, particularly on YouTube, the more haters there actually are out there. And it's an unfortunate thing of life. Some comments I have to delete. Usually I laugh and leave the funny comments up because it gives Kerry and myself a laugh. But sometimes they're that bad. And sometimes, you know, they say terrible things even about Kiara or whatever, and horrible things. And so I delete those ones. But, you know, haters are haters, and they're going to hate you no matter what you get. I actually think, really, in a way, it means that you're doing a good job, and jealousy is going to happen. And like I said, the more popular get, the more thumbs down you're going to get. Yeah, I love it, Jim. Angry basement dwellers. I love it. That's so funny. Oh, what a cracker. So anyway, so thank you so much for all the people that have given thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. And it's 1 thumbs down now. I thought someone said it was 6 before. What else have we got? Langston said Nikon fans. Those wedding videos definitely attract clients. Yep. This is a short one. I was going to make this an hour and I've nearly been on 2 hours. I can't help myself. Like I said, this is, for me, and I keep saying this, I know, but it really is this way. It's like me sitting around with a bunch of mates having a coffee here, but it's like just sitting around with a bunch of mates having a chat. And I love this aspect of it. And that's why these end up going for 2 hours. I can't help it because I just love talking to you guys. Let's finish up anyway pretty soon. Langston said, do you see any value in going to wedding bridal shows? No. Not personally. I do, everything that I get is word of mouth, and posting on things like Instagram. Facebook I don't get much anymore. Most of the work that I get is through Instagram. I've never done a wedding expo, and I'm basically booked out for the next 2 years. So I can understand some photographers may do it. You'd have to sort of justify how much it costs you to do, and then whether you get enough referrals from that. And what I probably suggest to do is to do one, and then see what type of referrals you get. But when I say referrals, you've also got to work out how many you actually book. That's the thing. Like if it costs you $1,000 to do this wedding show and then you only get one wedding out of it, it may not be worthwhile. So you have to see. But I've never done them. I've never needed to. But I know a lot of photographers do them. And a lot that I see don't do very well in them. I just got a donation. Let me see who that is. Isle, thank you so much. Great channel. Thank you for keeping it up and going. South Floridan subscriber. Thank you so much, mate. What else have we got? I love Michael said that's me. You're sitting in the... You're sitting in the... But is your mother doing the washing, Michael? I love it. He's sitting in the basement. There's nothing wrong with sitting in the basement as long as you're not sitting in there living off your mother when you're about 40 years old. Langston said, I just read that one. So I don't really see, for me, I don't see the benefit of bridal shows. It doesn't mean I'll never do one, but I haven't at this stage. I should do one time and just see what it does. I really should try one and just to see how it works for me, because I've never done one. Gerald says, we'll be able to set up a USA trip for you and Kiara in the next 16 months. I'm here to help make it happen. Just ask. Yep, well, we'd love to do that, Gerald. I'd love to come out there with Kiara and do some shoots with you guys. Like I said, legally we'd have to do it, so I suppose it wasn't being any money paid while I'm there or whatever, I don't know, because we'd have to, because it just can get awkward when you start doing things like that. But I would love to come over and do, say, a whole series of shoots with you guys, with Kiara particularly. She'd be absolutely, tickle pink. Michael said respect. Thank you so much, Michael. Who was the other one that gave it to? Isle gave me another one. What do you think about the Godox AD200? It may not be bright enough. I'd go for the AD400 if you're going to overpower the sun. You have to get that close if you're dealing with an AD200 that basically you lose any chance of having something environmental, in other words, showing any any of your environment. You'd be better off having two of them and using both together, or just buying an AD400, which will give you much more power to overpower the sun. You'd have to be very close with one AD200. And you wouldn't be doing it with modifiers either. But yeah, I'd love to come out with Kiara. I would dearly love to come out and see you guys. So you never know, Gerald. We might be able to make it work. Langston said, re-haters, it just means you hit the big time. Well, that's the thing, it does. It means you're doing a good job, because I never used to get them. Now I'm getting them on every video. And the funny thing is, I'm getting them on the wedding videos, which cracks me up, because the wedding videos that I'm putting up is showing my behind the scenes of how I shoot a wedding. I don't really mention Sony gear or anything like that. It's just how you do behind the scenes weddings. And I'm getting down likes on those, and I'm thinking I'm only giving information for free about how you can shoot a wedding that shows a behind the scenes, and you're getting them on that. Like, the haters just crack me up. They really do. Blaze King said all the haters left. Venom. And the thing is too that I watch sometimes some videos that annoy me, but I still won't give thumbs down. I just don't see the point of it. You're better off to give a constructive criticism or something like that and say what you think, rather than just giving a thumbs down. They're hiding, like I said, behind that thumbs down. And I think they probably just hate it because I'm a Sony user, and they're probably Canon shooters or Nikon shooters, and they just hate how Sony are doing and how I am promoting Sony. But I love that gear, so naturally I'm going to promote Sony. But I think that's just the thing. They are just haters. Question, do you never thought about it? Do you have basements in Australia? No, we don't. Very few houses have basements at all here in Australia. We just don't have them. They're single level houses, most of them, and basically everyone just lives in that, so we don't have basements, no. I mean, there are houses with basements when you get into the cities. Some of them will have them that are the big buildings, sort of, they have a basement underneath, but 90% of the homes in Australia don't have basements, no. And probably 90% of the houses are just single-story, houses. Michael said it was 5 or 6, but they changed their minds. Perhaps it's gone to 0. That's funny. It's gone, unless someone just pressed the thing down and they pressed the wrong one, because it's gone to 0. That's hilarious. Jim Penn says, have Susie posing with a thumbs down. Laugh out loud, they undid their thumbs down. Unless they didn't mean to, but that cracks me up. But like I said, every video I get gets thumbs down now, so I'm used to it. Thoughts on the Godox, I said, as a starter camera flash? Well, like I said, the Profoto B10 that I've got is 250 watts, and I found that's pretty good. I think a lot of people, though, we did have this discussion previously, though, Fenny. I would buy the AD400 before I bought the AD200. That's only because I'd like that extra bit of power if I needed it. But the AD200 are a great light, and that might be one that I use eventually to show you guys how I do lighting with Godox. I might use an AD200 and a 400 or something. But I think it's a great starter light that you could actually do because it's inexpensive. And you can always buy 2 of them and use 2 if you wanted to go down that line and do it that way. If you can save, I would get the AD400 though first. If you can't, the AD200 will be a good starter. Yes, it will. Chris said, Facebook is posting conspiracy theories these days, not really good for business. That's funny. What was that one? Zoe comment said, quick question, Hitched or Instagram? I use Instagram. I nearly get all my work through Instagram. David, regarding your beginner wedding video, would a person be legally clear if they shot a wedding without registering as a photographer? Yes, they would be. Well, here in Australia they would be, but you'd still have to sign a contract. If there's money involved, you would have to pay tax. So that's the thing. I mean, you could do it if you're an amateur and no money was being there. If you were paying money, though, you would have to be legally done as a business because you'd need to pay tax. That's the thing. But like I said in that video, the most important thing is to have a contract, and that's why I mentioned that in that video. That video that I posted, and it was very basic. Like I said to people, don't watch that unless you really want to watch something that's really basic. But that video was in no way saying that it's right to shoot a video if you haven't got the experience. It was just to help people understand what you needed to shoot wedding videos. It didn't mean that when you buy that video, and I think some people commented on that, and that wasn't what that was about. That video was only talking to people about the minimum gear that you would need to shoot to get into the wedding industry. It was in no means saying that you could shoot a wedding if you had that. But you've got to remember there are always people that are going to be almost amateurs in shooting weddings that may be doing it for free. And in that case, it can help them. You don't always have to be charging money to do a wedding. You have to get in somewhere. And that's why I say sometimes shooting for free, it's not good a lot of the times. But if you just can't get work and it's the only way you can build your portfolio, what choice have you got? And it might help those sort of people. So that, Earl said, what do you think about the Godox AD200 for bright sunny days? I think it might be a bit underpowered. Oreo said, I've done 2 bridal shows, NAD. They've been a letdown. Yeah, and that's what I often hear, Oreo. I'm not going to do them anymore. Too expensive and too little return. And that's what I keep hearing about these bridal shows. People are making money from them, but you're not getting enough work actually out of it. Jim said, where would this shoot be with David? Well, if I came to the US, I'd want to go to multiple places, Jim, to shoot with you all if possible. I appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks so much for that. Oops, where did we go? Michael said, I wish I was living in my mother's basement. This is high mortgage in Los Angeles is killing me. Michael, the average house price here in Australia now is approaching $1 million. It is ridiculous. You talk about high mortgages. Come to Australia, it's nuts. If you live in Sydney, it's well over $1 million. I think Melbourne is around $1 million. You basically almost, if you want to live anywhere near close to Melbourne and you spend $1 million, you almost get this rundown old home. It's nuts. The prices of real estate in Australia is insane. I believe now that we have, I think it's that we pay the most, I think, for property or something in the world, I believe. I read the other day somewhere. I wish I was living in my mother's basement. I said that one. Michael said you are out of harm's way from the fires. 280-200 is great. Yes, and that's the thing. You can split them. That's good because you might be able to have a separation light for the hair or something like that, or around the shoulder, and then have one from the front on. Michael said he's in Santa Monica. It's about 15 to 20 minutes away, but in a different area. I hope you guys are all safe. Nikon shooters are the worst haters. Venom said, yep, went all to zero, laugh out loud. Michael said, David, I look at tons of YouTube videos. Don't worry about it. Everyone gets thumbs down. You're looking good on that side. I know, I don't worry about it, Michael. Honestly, it doesn't bother me at all. William said, is it true that when HDMI is in use, you lose face detection? I think you do on the A7 III. I think you keep it on the A9. I've got to do a test on that. It's only if you record to the internal card at the same time, though. What you've got to do is you record, and this is how I do it. If I'm using my Shogun, I'll record to the internal hard drive of the Shogun. then you keep face detection. So that's the good thing about doing it that way. I believe if you record to the internal card and the Shogun at the same time, you do lose that face detection. I've got to try the A9 and see though. Langston said, I'm a big fan of the 8200 myself. Won't overpower the Sun, but it does a great job of fill. Yeah, it's not strong enough. Photomic said, I had to step away to sell some photos that were shot on the Nikon camera. I love it. You guys crack me up, honestly. That's so funny. What else? Couple before we finish. Gerald said the Godox 8400 is better in many ways than 180-200. Yeah, I think the Godox 400 is a nice sweet spot. Not too big, and it's enough to overpower the Sun. That's why I'm saying if I had the money and I was thinking about any of those systems, I'd buy a AD400. Photomix says, Michael Pierce is here disguised as the AP. Chris says, my theory is if you're approaching someone working for free is okay. If someone is approaching you, work for free because it's very iffy. Yeah. You only have to work for free if you're going to get something out of it. And I really mean something out of it. Not for likes. You'll never get likes on Instagram or anything like that. Don't ever do that. If you're trying to build your portfolio, that's a totally different thing, and I completely understand. But you know, you've got to be very careful because you will get ripped off. If a company contacts you and say they'd love you to work for free to get likes or things like that, never do it. You're being ripped off. Haas says, David, but what if they pay you cash? Well, if you're paying your cash, you really haven't got anything to worry about, but I'd still have a contract. Definitely have a contract. If you do a wedding without a contract, you're asking for trouble. Well, Phonomic, I believe they don't. We're talking about New York probably still paying more per square foot. Well, you might be because they're so small. You could be right, but I did read somewhere recently that now Australians apparently have the highest amount of wealth. I'm not saying we have a lot to spend because we don't, but I read somewhere recently, it was in one of the papers here, that Australians now have the highest amount of wealth per capita of anywhere in the world, and that was due to the high prices of real estate here. The problem is that we also have compulsive superannuation, which means that we have money taken out each week from our wages. So if you work for, say, a company, they'll take out 10% of your wage per week, and then the government also matches that as well, and that goes into a thing for your working life, and then you get that back when you finish for your retirement. And like I said, that amount of wealth builds up. If you do, and when you say the average wage could be $100,000, you're talking about big money. If 10% comes out of that every week, plus another 10% is paid by the government, it's a lot of wealth that's being brought up in the country. I'll just Google because I'm just curious. I'll just average Sydney prices. Because I'm just curious to know. So the average price, they're saying here, in Sydney is 1.111 million. Now remember, that's for the really low-ended property. That's something that you could almost not live in if you're dealing with living near Sydney. So that's something. In Melbourne, it's $847,000. This is the average price. So they're nowhere near anything good. If you want to get anything good, you will be paying millions. They're saying here that the average median price in Sydney will hit $2,000 by 2028. But it's, although I think they were saying the other day that they have dropped by 6% over the last few days due to the fact that it is incredibly expensive. So yes, you may get some that are dearer per square feet because I suppose houses here are larger. But Australia is incredibly expensive if you're dealing with living in this country. What else? Before we finish, Photomix says, Ken, if I ever do a video, I don't have any affiliate links. I spend my whole day shooting skaters and answering emails for free. I know, that cracks me up. Ken, I own more lenses than my favourite camera store, Wheeler. It always does amaze me because he says all these things and then he's always buying all this gear. And I'm thinking, where on earth does he come from? Michael said, I've heard this before. It's called Social Security and that crap is looking all bad. Laugh out loud. Yeah, do you have, before we finish, do you have something like that in the USA where you pay that money in superannuation, which is taken out, it's compulsory, so you have to give, say, 10% out of your wage per week, and then the government matches that 10%, and then that goes over your whole working life, so that you have this big amount of funds when you retire. Do you have that in the US? Just before we finish, because I'd love to know. And then we also obviously get the pension as well when we retire, so we're pretty well looked after. And health, we also get covered in Australia as well. So, you know, I suppose we have it fairly good if you talk about things like that. I'll just wait for that because I'm curious about that answer if you have anything like that in the US, and then we'll finish for the day. Apart from that, stay tuned. There will be another wedding video going up on Monday, or it might be over the weekend. I've also got the next, I'll have one of Kiara come up. Gerald says it's called Social Security. Yeah, but does it do the same thing, Gerald? Does it have the same thing where you take out money each week? And plus, see, even in Australia, we have the permanent dole. So if you're not working, you get permanent dole, which means you get money. There's no time limit put on that. You have to go out and try and find work, though, but you don't lose it. Yeah, Venom, we have Social Security, but we also have 22 trillion in debt. Wow. I don't know what Australians' debt is. It wouldn't be anything like that. Yeah. Anyway, that's about it. So, like I said, I'll have a couple of videos of Kiara's studio shoots up during the week as well, because I've done a couple of those, which I thought you might find interesting. And apart from that, I'll see you all soon for the next video. Can't wait to see your videos of the Z6 Photomic. Look forward to seeing that. Yes, same every paycheck, get back at the end of the working hours, so it's a similar thing, yep. Oh, that's good. All right, guys, and I'll see you all for the next video. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.